Me or her makes no difference. I can't serve you unless you've got proper ID.
No, I just need to talk to you. It's important.
Go on, it's quite enough. Take your break.
You are the OG.
Mm-hmm. Oh, original Glenda.
The boss of bosses. A crypto queen. Why are you not in the Forbes 500?
I ask my mirror every night.
Now get gone. I'm still not serving you.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Hello and welcome to episode 361 of the Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that has its fingers crossed that the powers that be will burn down number 8 again and have another puppet redecorating. I'm Gavin.
And when we said no kings, we meant it.
Oh.
Damn it. Just because we all love Jonathan Groff as King George in Hamilton doesn't mean we want a king again.
Well, I was not expecting that response to my call for redecoration.
Damn it.
Although it does feel maybe slightly apropos.
Did you have a painting of someone dressed as a king on their wall for some reason?
Who does?
The Platts.
Oh, that's Alf. That's Audrey's
That's not Alf.
deceased husband.
Alf is an alien who eats cats.
This is his true form
Okay.
as the mayor of Weatherfield.
The mayor gets to dress up like the king? Does the king know about this?
Helen, I can't be expected to teach you British history within the scope of a Coronation Street podcast.
I suppose not. You did help me learn how to pronounce Welsh, though. So more on that later.
Yeah, blame me for that if you fuck it up, certainly. How are you this week?
Yeah, I'm good. We finished an auction. I'm very happy about
Oh,
that.
hold on, I haven't pressed this button in ages. I actually do like to press it myself, but just for personal reasons. Auction talk.
Yeah, we got an auction finish that's going to go up on Sunday, and then we have one ending Monday, and then we have one ending next week, and then I started a new one today, and I got to do more than just books and art and records today. I got to do some fancy art glass.
Oh,
Yes, including this Fenton vase that I thought was really pretty, and then I found out that it was uranium.
Maranium?
Yes, uranium.
I've been looking for that.
Yeah, it's this.
That and a clean pair of socks.
It's this. You know, it's got these pretty pink sailboats on it, in glass, but the pink glass is inlaid over uranium glass, and I didn't realize it when I was first doing it, so I had to run and get the black light and use the black light on it. And
Careful with that. Careful.
It was so cool.
That's all I'm saying.
It was glowing. People love the uranium glass. They're afraid to drink out of McDonald's glasses from the 70s because of lead, but they love to have uranium in their house.
Maranium?
Yes, uranium. So it was fun, and I got to do instruments and stuff and some other stuff. So, and we are, Madeleine, we are packed to the gills.
Mm.
We are running out of space. It is scary how much stuff we have coming up. Yes, we have. It's been very busy, and it seems like it's not going to stop being busy for the rest of the summer.
Well, that's good news.
Yes. Yes. People keep dying.
That is a trend that I see continuing.
Yes, and then their families keep calling us to take care of their stuff.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yes. Silver, people. Prices on silver are already going up, and they're going to go up even further. So hoard that silver, buy more, and sell high later. That's my tip.
Imagine a legally binding caveat that we can boilerplate onto that just to remove any liability from people heeding that advice and it going horribly wrong. Imagine that there.
Can you possibly see a situation where it'd be horribly wrong to buy lots of silver?
It's just better to keep these things covered.
Although I am not a licensed appraiser. So,
There you go. There's that boilerplate.
So take that with a grain of salt, but buy silver. How about you? How was your week?
There we go. That's what we're waiting for. The fake interest in how my week's been. I had a horrible morning yesterday morning where one of the worst things that can happen happened before work, and I had to go to our local supermarket / store / shop to buy toilet paper because we had essentially run out of toilet paper.
It was like COVID all over again.
And the look in the cashier's eye as I get to the checkout with my 12-pack of Cottonelle, and she just looks at me and she says, "You're a man who needs a shit, aren't you?"
See, this is why you always buy something else with your toilet paper.
I don't have time because I needed a shit.
Toilet paper. And thank you. Thank you for buying the Cottonelle and not that Angel Soft, which, as much as I love Alexandra Mardell, I do not like the product that the cartoon version of herself is embossed with.
Normally, I do like to buy something else with toilet paper just so it's not so obvious that I need a shit.
Right.
But I didn't have any time, so.
There was nothing like in the... You can, like, grab some Tic Tacs or a Pepsi.
I wonder what message buying Tic Tacs would send.
With toilet
Why would he
paper?
need his breath refreshened?
Well,
Let's
he
not
poops.
pick at that scab, and let's instead preamble my dear.
It's like the time I sent
No, let's not preamble my dear then.
It's like the time I sent my college boyfriend out to buy me tampons, and he didn't want to just buy tampons, so he also bought peanut butter.
Yeah, that's not great. No, that's not great. I don't know why, but just in these sort of situations where you have to buy something else, just don't buy something else that's brown. Any other colour will do, apart from maybe strawberry jam. Now shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that shitty Corrie news.
ITV has confirmed that no, Emmerdale and Corrie will not merge to become one show to cut costs. It's just a one-off. Honestly, we promise.
Or
I don't think...
Coronation Dales.
Yeah, I think the supposition was that they would move the production of Emmerdale to Manchester so that they were closer together.
I don't think they could do that, though.
I don't think so, because...
An absence of fields for a start.
Well, there is that. Although I don't know. I mean, most places in Scotland, you're like in a big city, and then like 1 mile out, you're face to face with a cow. So
This is Helen's UK geography again. It worked so well last week.
So I'm just assuming that, England would be the same way. Only probably not, because more people live in England than live in Scotland. And Scotland is more spread out. Sue Cleaver has a new gig already in the play Snake in the Grass, which will open this fall at Octagon Theatre Bolton and Theatre Clwyd.
Well done. Guess which word Helen asked me how to pronounce?
The one without
Bolton.
the one without any vowels in it.
Any traditional vowels, yeah.
And finally, Helen Flanagan has revealed that she was bullied for being on the show when she was a kid in school.
Yeah,
and
I can see that happening. That's sad, but I can see it happening.
And had to get moved to like a private girls' school instead, and then also, tutors on the show, which obviously you always have. So it has made her a little more cautious about school choice for her own children. Although I don't think many of her children's companions at school will remember Rosie Webster, but who knows?
Yeah, it's a tricky one because it can either go one or two ways. You think that the kids that are in your class are either going to think that you're a hero, or even if you're the most humble person in the world, you're just going to think that you're up yourself. And
Right, you're an asshole. Yeah. And you hear that a lot from lots of people who were on shows as kids. Neil Patrick Harris has talked about getting bullied at school when he was on Doogie Howser. So...
I think it's probably best that I move on.
And that's Corrie News.
To our feedback section that I like to call Everyone's a Critic. I still haven't got round to it, so this is going to have to do in the meantime. Physical mail. Physical mail.
You could have just done that instead of playing the stupid flashback thing. 'Cause that's confusing.
I like playing the stupid flashback thing.
It's like we're on South Park, and I don't want to be on South Park.
We've got physical mail.
Woohoo! With cute little dogs on it.
Now, this is written in cursive and it's written in fairly small writing, so bear with me.
Do you want me to read it instead? I write in cursive
know
all the
what?
time.
Yeah, fuck it. You can read out the mail.
Thank you. Wow, this is such an honor. Gavin Hell.
So far, you're doing a bang-up job.
This is Mohammed. I'm here with Caroline and Amy in Norfolk, Virginia, where Craig is being buried. That was how did Kurt get the van all the way to Virginia and then back the next day?
Well, as Gary said, that's a hell of a drive.
Yes. Is it an inflatable van?
Inflate a van.
Inflate a van.
That's Kirk.
We are having scones with Kerrygold butter. Oh my God. How good is Kerrygold butter?
Oh, I started buying that.
Oh my
When
God.
did I start buying that?
We started buying that during lockdown because the cheap butter was gone.
But I've been buying the Land O'Lakes.
Uh-huh.
But I've started buying the Kerrygold again if it's available.
Right.
It's just better.
It's because it's Irish. And Irish cows are better cows. Which is not from Kerry, but from Cork.
There we go.
Yes, in Ireland. I have only started watching Corrie last month, and I must say, it's either the most intriguing show ever or these are one of the best few months of Corrie. Also, Kit should not be a cop. Because he's bent, only really tall.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping Craig would have gotten Mick, but that's why I'm not a show writer. Well, don't worry. Don't worry. Just hold on, Mohammed.
It's becoming harder and harder to tell.
I enjoyed listening to your podcast every week,
Thank you very much.
especially when singing happy birthday to Caroline.
We did a little bit of harmony on that, remember?
We did. Now you can count me as one of those who listened to your voices and said, yeah, I'll sleep to that.
Praise indeed.
No, seriously, one of my favorite podcasts in the world with film critics whose opinions I value is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to because they're two men who are married to one another and one of their voices is just very soft and calming and very slow, and I love it so much. Anyway, the Eid al-Adha is Friday, June 6th. That's why I mailed this with an Eid Mubarak stamp.
Yep, I can confirm.
Let me see that. I'm a stamp expert. My grandpa worked at the post office. Yep, that is indeed what that stamp is. It's very pretty. All the best, Mohammed. And yes, these dogs are frickin' adorable on the stationery. I love them. They are so cute. And evidently, this one is called Calder, which I'm assuming is Mohammed's dog. Very, very, very cute. None of these look like Dobby,
That is
which is fine.
our physical mail of the week.
That is our physical mail of the week.
Now,
Physical mail.
now Mohammed. Wake up!
Go back to sleep. It's okay.
ASMR. Remember when we used to do ASMR?
Yes, we did.
So that's gone back a while.
ASMR.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, for your physical mail. Thank you for mail which isn't about Chapter Run, because the rest of the mailbag, or a fair proportion of it.
Oh, you mean Ding Dong Dash?
Let's start with Canadian Helen, shall we?
Yes.
Speaking of the knocking on doors game, I've heard it as Nicky Nicky Nine Doors. I like that.
I like that too.
The name may be associated with the Cornish holiday of Nicannon Night. Nick from Corrie would probably cry if he played it.
That's Helen from Canada making a joke.
Canadian Hell is funny.
I love it.
Coastal News writes, now this could be Cy or Sophie, I don't know which one.
Right, so it's just coastal news.
Knock a door, run, right? Knock a door. So we've got
So that sounds like a very Australian sort of thing.
neither one of those people is Australian.
Yes, but isn't coastal news about...
It's about home and away,
Oh, okay.
which is Australian.
Right, okay, thank you.
So Nicky Nicky Nine Doors and Knock a Door so far. Sharon writes, we call it Knock Down Ginger.
Do you get to knock down a ginger when you do it?
So that's 3 correspondents with 3 different titles.
And none of that what we call it.
Seal My Fridge writes, Knock Door Run in the Midlands, UK, we call it cherry knocking. No idea why.
Yeah, to me, cherry knocking means something completely different.
Absolutely. And I would think in the Midlands it would mean the same thing, but hey, maybe Seal My Fridge is playing different games to the rest of us.
Maybe he's knocking on different doors.
Amy writes, here in Newcastle, that harmless childhood game was called Knocky Door Ginger or Nicky Knocky Nine Door.
Okay, so
No, I can't explain.
where is this person from?
Newcastle.
Is that anywhere near Cornwall?
Well, in galactic terms, yes. In terms of the United Kingdom, no.
Right, because she said it was, because Canadian Helen thought it was related to a Cornish festival. So that's why I asked.
Caroline and Amy Metcalf write, reporting live from the Gold Coast and Virginia Beach. Back in my day in Sunny Island, we used to call the door knocking game Knock-a-Donny.
That sounds like something the Irish would do.
Ring doorbells have taken all the fun out of it these days. Oh, to be young again, when Mike Baldwin had hair and Mavis gave you a free lolly. Mm-hmm. Fiona writes, and this is going to do nothing to dispel Helen's views that the UK is so small that everybody knows everybody. Fiona writes, I can confirm that it is a new glory because the former glory, so to speak, was my friend's adorable kid.
That has nothing to do with knocking on doors.
No, we've moved on from that now.
Okay. Yes, I saw that. That was really cool.
Isn't
I
it?
mean, it's not cool that your neighbor's or your friend's adorable kid is no longer glory, but I'm glad that
It's cool that they were.
it's cool that they were, and I'm glad that you and I can recognize the difference in children.
Cheeky brings us back to Coronation Street. Thank you, Cheeky.
Thank you.
I hope this message finds you both well. While the week as a whole had strong moments, I have to admit I found the funeral and reception for Officer PC Craig Tinker surprisingly underwhelming.
Yeah.
Given how deeply integrated Craig was in the community and how shocking his death was, I expected those scenes to carry a heavier emotional weight.
Yeah.
Or push the narrative forward in more impactful ways.
Mm-hmm.
Kit's absence from the service felt like a missed opportunity for dramatic tension, and while I understand that choice was probably deliberate, it didn't resonate the way I think it was meant to. It felt like a pivotal moment that simply didn't land as powerfully as it should have.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Let me just say up front, the storyline involving Sally and Tim caring for Loonwick's children was the beating heart of the week. Mm-hmm. What a revelation it's been to see this long-established couple take on something so emotionally charged and unfamiliar. There's always been warmth and wit in their marriage, but this plotline gave it an added depth. Thank you both for creating a space where we can process these stories together. Your podcast continues to be a highlight of my week.
Aw.
And I'm always grateful for your insights and humour. Can't wait to hear what you both thought. Thank you very much indeed, Cheeky, for your very thoughtful email.
Yes.
And to Fiona, Caroline and Amy Metcalf, Amy, Sharon, Coastal News and Canadian Helen. And let's not forget Seal My Fridge, which I just skimmed over there.
Right.
Did you see that?
I was about ready to say, what about Seal My Fridge?
Thank you to all of you.
What about Seal My Fridge?
And Mohammed.
And
for
Mohammed
writing
for
them this week.
physical mail with adorable doggies.
It's so appreciated.
Yes.
Send us your thoughts and I will probably read them out. Get us at the talk of the street at gmail.com. Our DMs are open at Corrie Podcast. And we love it. We love it when people write actual letters to us and particularly postcards. We still haven't got our postcard board, but that's a work in progress.
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, that's why I said it. Send all that stuff to the Talk of the Street, P.O. Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan 48827, and please note that we reserve the right to edit feedback, but only in the interests of brevity.
We will also accept chocolates and ketchup chips in the mail.
Absolutely.
Please and thank you. Especially
Nope.
ketchup chips.
And they will podcast for coffee.
Yes.
We're drinking our own coffees this week.
What? What?
Back on the ginger ale.
You back on the ginger ale kick?
And you're not drinking anything? Is it?
I just finished my pink grapefruit juice that I had because I'm very thirsty because it's warm in this room.
Lovely stuff.
Lovely stuff.
The Talk of the Street is and will always be free in your pot, blah, 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 blah. You can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street, blah, 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 friend of the podcast,
Blah, blah, blah.
$2 a month, blah, 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 patreon.com/the Talk of the Street. But remember, you can all blah, 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 blah.
Blah, 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 blah. Skylander.
Yeah. Everything else is taking a little bit longer this week, so let's just jump to it, shall we? Nobody's interested in me reading out the same 100 words that I've read out for the past 5 years. Oh, Gavin, I'm really interested in that. Well, maybe next week. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Yes, please.
And our first storyline this week is Who'd a Tall Daddy?
He's a tall drink of water, I'll give you that.
On Monday, Kit is in Nina's rolls a bit down in the dumps for Tinker's memorial, worrying that he could have done more for Tinker. No, says Bernie, who's clearly lying. He speaks with Lou about getting a DNA test. She isn't interested, and they're spotted by Brody, who
Just so they
thinks
can find out that Lou's that bitch. Or that Kit's that bitch.
Kit's that bitch.
Kit's that bitch.
We know that Lou is Brody's mum. We're not testing for that.
Right. Found out he's 100% that bitch.
Brody thinks that Kit is harassing his mum. Later, Swain approaches Kit, and apparently Costello wants Kit to do the eulogy at Tinker's memorial. Why doesn't Costello do it?
And he says that the family requested that Kit do the... Beth wants Kit nowhere near the funeral of her son.
Beth was chased out of town thanks to Kit.
Yeah, seriously. So I don't think the family has requested this. I think Costello is just bullshitting. Or, plot.
Kit doesn't look too enamoured by the prospect, but agrees. He thought Swain would have been asked, but it seems there's a reason why Swain isn't asked to do these things.
Because she's a woman.
And also other trauma. Later, Addie is taking delivery of too much whiskey, and Kit catches Brody trying to steal a bottle from the delivery van.
Yeah, what's up with that? Who orders whiskey every week? Why would I order whiskey every week? You know Dev is behind this, right?
Dev was high in India and made this order online for 1 million bottles of whiskey.
Right.
These are the scraps that were thrown to Addie now.
Right.
The delivery of too much whiskey. Next week in Coronation Street, Addie takes delivery of too much whiskey.
Next week, too much Kerrygold butter.
Oh, you can't get
You
too
can't
much
get too
Kerrygold
much
butter.
Kerrygold butter. Because it's Irish.
So, Brody's trying to steal a bottle from the van, and Kit intervenes. Brody calls Kit a paedophile and fucks off to steal whiskey from somewhere else, telling Kit that he knows a lot about him. I know a lot about you. He goes round the corner and sees Swain and complains about police harassment, accusing Kit of getting Mick beaten up in prison. Swain tells him to make a formal complaint at the station then or shut up, and she reminds him that his dad is a murderer.
Yeah.
She calls Kit to warn him as he's in the pub with Bernie and Sarah. Kit and Sarah are of the opinion that Brody is a wrong un, but typical Bernie thinks that he's just misunderstood.
And it was funny because the whiskey delivery guy sees Kit put the bottle back and says, "Hey, what are you doing, pal?" And Kit says, "I'm not your pal, guy." And the whiskey driver says,
You're the one that didn't want South Park. And here we are.
I can't help it, because that's exactly what I thought of. I love
I'm
this.
not your pal, guy.
I'm not your guy, pal.
I'm not your girlfriend. But in Canadian.
Yes, right. Where their jaws are not attached for some reason.
That's right. Because it's the frozen north.
Yes. And they fart a lot.
I mean, it's becoming clearer why we lost like a third of our Canadian listeners last year. It's becoming clearer.
We love Canada and their ketchup chips.
I still don't know why that happened. But hey, whatever.
Whatever.
True to his word, Brody gets some booze from somewhere else, but then has a seizure. And it's Kit, Bernie and Sarah who come to the rescue.
And it's a good thing Sarah's there because David has epilepsy. And so she knows what epilepsy looks like. Gav, when was the last time David had a seizure on the street?
Not in the... How long have we been doing this? 7 years? Not in the 7 years we've been doing this.
No.
Kit comes to the rescue and spares some of Brody's blushes. Bernie suggests calling Brody an ambulance,
Brody, you're an ambulance.
but there's no time for that, so Kit takes him to the hospital himself. Bernie gives Lou a call while Kit waits on news, and it isn't long before Brody is asking to speak to Kit. He goes in with Bernie, and Brody thanks Kit for his help and asks why he stayed. Bernie has asked Lou to bring in some spare joggers because Brody's either pissed them or shot them.
Probably shot them.
Kit promises not to tell everybody about that.
He
Lou
will tell
arrives.
nobody about that.
Lou arrives, so Kit and Bernie leave. Kit speaks with Swain in the pub later ahead of the memorial. Kit is worried about all the ghosts Swain might have at this, and Swain tells him to make sure whatever is going on with Brody is left out of it. Later, Bernie goes round to Kit's and shows him the cap that she stole from Brody's bedside. A cap that has Brody's hair in it.
Lots of it. Lots and lots of hair.
Kit thinks this is a dreadful idea, but Bernie and surprisingly Sarah think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
A secret, possible, illegal DNA test. What could possibly go wrong?
That we find out that he's 100% that bitch.
But this does explain why Brody was wearing a baseball cap in this episode.
Yes, because he'd never worn one before.
No. And that's as far as we get with that part of the storyline. So we'll come back to the rest of the memorial presently. But I was kind of disappointed that we bring up the prospect of a DNA test.
And then it's just forgotten for the rest of the week.
Not mentioned. And I don't know if this is an example of that block filming thing that I hear so much of these days, where these storylines are filmed in blocks and they're kind of separate from other developments on the street, and we can go a week without hearing about anything, and then the next week it crops up again. But it's very strange to drop this potential DNA bomb into the mix and then it's not mentioned, but it's maybe sort of hinted at in the next storyline on Wednesday as to Kit's disappearance, but
no, because he's drunk when he finally shows back up.
Yeah, so very strange.
Who knows? The show is strange.
Is this them trying to make us sympathetic towards Brody, do you think?
If so, it's not working.
No.
It kind of feels like this is a thing where Brody kind of realizes that maybe Kit's not a bad guy after all, even though he is a cop.
Mm-hmm. He went very quickly from calling Kit a paedophile, essentially, to being very grateful
that he
for getting him brought into the hospital, where maybe he would have been more embarrassed by it, thanks to the be-shitting of his pants.
Right.
Yeah, Brody did seem a bit more human about all that stuff and humble, I guess.
But then later on, he's not, so who knows?
I do wonder if there's any formalities for this sort of situation where a policeman is killed in duty or a police officer is killed in the line of duty. Do they normally just pick someone at random to be the person to give the speech? Because neither of those were really Tinker's boss. The person who knew Tinker the best was PC Jess.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even an option.
Right. I was thinking about this myself because typically, especially when a police officer is killed in the line of duty, I know here a very big to-do is made of it, and there's like, it's very similar to like a military, you know, with much pomp and circumstance and saluting and guns being shot and that sort of thing.
Yeah, but a very high-ranking presence.
Was Costello even at the funeral or the memorial? I didn't even remember seeing him there.
I think he might have been.
He doesn't say anything.
Certainly doesn't say anything. But if you wanted it to be someone, the highest ranking person in the Nick would be Costello.
Right.
But if you wanted it to be the person who knew Tinker best, it would be PC Jess.
one would assume.
And in the end, they pick neither,
No.
and neither doesn't show up, and it's a different neither who actually does it.
Right.
And we can talk about the quality of it in the next storyline. In fact,
Yes. Why don't we do that now?
let's just do that now. Let's
Yes.
move on to our next storyline for the Memory of Tinks. Well, Monday, Swain is in a foul mood with the world and takes it out on Betsy, who's been a lazy cow, and Carla, who is concerned about her. At the factory, Sally is also feeling Carla's wrath.
Yeah, Carla takes out her wrath upon her employees, which is played for laughs.
Yeah, so Sally's feeling Carla's wrath as she's vicariously angry thanks to Swain. So she gets Betsy to take a cuppa in for Carla to calm her down.
Right, yes, she was voted to be the one to do it. And all of the knicker people stare at her until she does it. It's very ceremonial, the passing of the cup with the knicker people.
Betsy in this scene is superb.
She's very good. She was very good. Well, she was very good for most of the week.
I think she's a cracking actor, Sydney
Absolutely.
Martin. And I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but it's some of those little micro expressions that she has, or the small attention to detail that I see Georgia Taylor doing, that's so impressive. Just the way that they move. And Betsy in this, as she turns to go into Carla's office, she takes this breath to steady her nerves.
Right.
And it's so believable.
Absolutely.
And it's just a small thing that you wouldn't miss it if it wasn't there. But the
Right.
fact that it is there just really sells that scene. And I do think that that Sydney does this all the time.
Yes.
Her character is genetically designed to aggravate the viewer,
Yes.
but the way that it's been portrayed is absolutely spot on.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? I like that the show is capitalizing upon the real life friendship between her and the girl who plays racist Kelly.
Kate Fitton.
Yes, I like that they're capitalizing because they're friends in real life, and the show is working that friendship into their characters, and I like that because I think that they have really great chemistry together, which we'll talk about later.
I agree, we'll get to that. So, sure enough, Carla opens up about Swain being hard to read, and Betsy thinks Swain is struggling but has no idea what to do about it, but welcome to Swain. Carla tries to make Swain a fancy dinner later, but Swain is unappreciative, and when Carla
Bites
says
her
that...
fucking head off. It's like, what in the hell is wrong with you? Carla cooked for you. Why would you not appreciate this? Are you not hungry?
She didn't ask for dinner.
I know, that was like the most ridiculous thing that she has ever said in her entire life. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for you to cook for me. I'd much rather just, slop some meat between two pieces of bread and be done with it.
But not like that.
Not like that, because we're lesbians.
We are?
Well,
My anus?
Swain is a lesbian. Carla is bisexual. But anyway, it's just so ridiculous the way Swain just yells at Carla for making dinner.
Sometimes, though, people want to be in a bad mood, and other people's attempts to get them out of the bad mood can push them further into a bad mood.
I understand that, but
Human nature, right?
dinner.
But yeah, it's done. You're going to have to eat. Swain says that she didn't ask for any of this and doesn't need Carla's support, and she storms out. That's a new one. I don't need your support. But, okay, whatever. So Carla invites Roy around for dinner instead.
Which is lovely.
It was
and
hilarious.
is like the most perfect thing in the world. Well, fine. Fuck you. I'm calling Roy over.
Roy, get your ass over here for
And
dinner.
eat this dinner.
Eat it!
I would much rather have dinner with Roy anyway.
At
No-
this moment, absolutely.
No offense to Swain, but she's not a very good conversationalist.
So,
Roy's not a very good conversationalist.
exactly. So Roy's invited round for dinner so she can moan to him instead. Roy thinks a police officer detaching herself from her emotions is probably understandable. Carla, though, isn't prepared to let Swain self-destruct. On Wednesday, Swain is jogging through the precinct and doesn't get stabbed, so well done on that.
Yes.
Back home, she's apologising for reacting badly to Carla being nice to her yesterday. Meanwhile, Betsy is nosing through some of the boxes of Swain's, and she doesn't react well to this. When Betsy is suspicious and upset, Swain tells her it contains information from the donor bank that she's not legally allowed to see until she's 18.
Which is interesting. Isn't that interesting? How is that a law that you're not allowed to see?
Because if you're under 18 and you find out who someone is your biological dad, you could maybe start
Harassing
thinking
them?
that they are financially responsible for you. So until you turn 18,
I can kind of see that.
you can't make that claim. It's maybe something that people who are donating sperm are probably advised to do, I would have thought. At the memorial, Kit is a no-show and Bernie is no help. Swain's in full police garb, gloves and all, and so it lands on her to do the eulogy
As are all the other cops there, it must be said.
because Kirk is constantly falling to pieces. Swain's speech is heartfelt and emotional as she manages to forget how shit of a copper Tinker was and how
That's right.
corrupt he was.
And she calls him her friend, and I'm like, you were never his friend.
The only time I think I really saw them acting together on a case is when she glared at him when he threw up at finding Ted's body in the...
Was it Ted or was it
Yeah.
Rick the Chin?
No, Stephen never killed Rick the Chin, Helen. You keep on making this mistake.
Yeah,
Stephen
but
killed Ted
Rick the
and
Chin.
put Ted in the roof rack and then threw the roof rack into the canal. And it was the discovery of that body oozing out of the roof rack that made Tinker vomit and then made Swain glare
It was
at
a
him.
hand sticking out of the ground. It was not the roof rack. It was a hand sticking out of the ground that made Craig throw up.
No, it wasn't.
Which was not Ted. It was Ted's son.
That wasn't what made
Sinkhole.
Tinker throw up.
Sinkhole.
Sinkhole Leo.
Leo, thank you.
But either way,
How
that's
could
still...
I remember sinkhole but not the Leo part?
But it still wasn't
No,
the
I
thing
thought
that
for
made...
sure.
No, honestly, it wasn't. I have the footage of it on a fairly recent post on Twitter.
Because it was when Ed and
I'm going to have to stop arguing with you about this.
No, but it was. I could have sworn it was when Ed and Ronnie found that hand sticking out of the ground when they were supposed to be building something.
The green hand, no, that wasn't when Tinker threw up. Tinker might have thrown up off screen about that,
About the green hand.
but the bit that we saw him thrown up at was the,
You know
was
what?
the roof rack.
Like last night, I watched The Bone Collector for the first time, and it reminded me of Sinkhole Leo's green hand.
That's great.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Anyway,
she forgets how corrupt he was and paints a picture of a capable and popular police officer who had a total commitment to the pursuit of justice. She also talks of his death and the death of any police officer, and it becomes clear that she's also talking about Becky here. There's hardly a dry eye in the house. Today, we're all Craig Tinker. Back home, Betsy is going through those boxes when she's caught by Carla, but Carla doesn't know about the donor excuse, so doesn't think it's that big a deal. And then Betsy's gone, and the moment passes. Later, when Swain comes back, she notices the boxes have moved, and Carla grasses up Betsy.
because she's a detective.
And when Swain sees the document at the top of the box, she's suddenly distraught. Apparently, when Becky died... Okay, let's sit down and strap ourselves in for this.
Right, yeah.
Apparently, when Becky died, she was being investigated for corruption and had kept it secret from Swain. But Swain managed to find out at work about it. And it broke something between the two of them, and so they were on bad terms that day, and Becky wasn't replying to her texts, and Becky died later that day.
Right, when she was run over by a car.
Swain tried to contact her to apologise, but her phone was left in her locker, which meant that no one could find her when she died.
And then when she woke up, she was a widow.
The allegations were dropped, and Becky didn't get the funeral she deserved.
Because it was COVID.
Carla advises that Swain speak to Betsy about the letter, and Swain agrees, but not today. And Betsy will never know about the row that Swain and Becky had on the day that Becky died.
Or about the allegations of
Well, this is brand new information.
financial fraud or something. Because she's like, Becky was never good with money.
Which was a strange thing to say.
It was a weird thing to say. And so there were allegations of taking money.
Or bribes or something. Some
Yeah.
sort of financial impropriety.
Right. But then they were dropped. Were they dropped because they were unsubstantiated, or were they dropped because she was dead?
I got the feeling the latter.
Right, which has this heavy thing hanging over this, is that maybe the sainted Becky did take bribes, and maybe that's why she was run over by a car, instead of it being Mason's brothers who ran her over with a car because she was trying to arrest them for selling drugs or something. I just don't feel like... and I'm just sitting there saying, wait a second. We're just done with Craig's memorial now? That's it? We're done? We're just done now. Some people...
Muhammad's trying to sleep here.
Some people said some very nice things about Craig, and they talked about what he liked on his bacon sandwich and crap like that.
Talked about his rat.
Yes,
Swain's speech was excellent.
it was. Oh, and then somebody talked about a thing that I remembered from the show, and I was like, that's hilarious. That happened recently, and they're reminiscing about it, and now I can't remember what it was. Oh, it was when he worked at the factory. Remember when he worked at the factory?
Yeah, because
And he hated it?
he gave up being a policeman because it was so
Because
terribly
he's a
corrupt.
bent cop, which has never come out and now never will. and then PC, what's her name?
Jess.
PC Jess has a crack at Faye, and then Tim's like, "That's my daughter." And
Well, I
he's
must
like,
be thinking about somebody else.
I must be thinking about someone else that Craig dated, which is nobody. Maybe she's...
And somebody said, and he was just taking up the dating, like he was learning how to play guitar.
Right, yeah, he just decided to start dating.
Oh, and he was so looking forward to it.
Was so looking forward to dating. And then he tried, and he was going to go on a date, but instead he died. And that poor woman was sitting here in the pub, and somebody had to go over and say, sorry, he's dead.
So it definitely wasn't Daisy catfishing from Bali then.
Correct.
Kind of disappointed in that. No, you're right though. The much lauded memorial was, yeah, it was a fairly
There was
perfunctory sort of event.
There was the annoyance that Kit wasn't there. There was Swain's speech, and then later on, it's Lou trying to fit in by going to the funeral because she doesn't understand when Gary gives her advice that he doesn't mean right now, which we'll talk about later, I'm assuming.
Well, maybe. I don't know if I mentioned that.
And that was it.
But even Swain's speech was more about
Swain.
and Becky.
Yeah. Than it was about Craig.
This is why Costello should be doing this speech, or Jess.
Or Kirk. It's like, oh, Kirk's too sad to give a speech about his own stepson. That's who should be giving the speech. Or, I don't know, Billy, who's not even there. Or somebody else from the community. All these people telling stories about him, and nobody saying, nobody wanting to stand up and eulogize him. It was just such a damp squib for the character. It's like, we're just going to show some pictures on this video screen, but then we're going to cut away from it and we're not going to show it again. Sure. Daniel reminiscing about Craig. It's like, were you guys friends?
Daniel smirking when something about women was brought up.
Oh, yeah.
Just a strange reaction to that.
Right, which is a very strange reaction considering that, Craig was so in love with Bethany and Daniel is the one who got to sleep with Bethany.
I was never, as you may have noticed, the #1 Craig Tinker fan.
No.
And I can understand why his funeral wasn't there because of Beth and the complexities
pay her
of
to come
bringing
back.
Lisa George back. And,
Yeah.
and I can understand the complexities of it.
However,
But to do the funeral off screen and then to do the memorial that is more there to serve other things,
yeah, to serve two other storylines.
it's just a bit off.
At least two other storylines.
Anyway.
Yeah. Shame on you. All right, so we know that Betsy has gone through the box.
Later, Swain
What's
is
in the
sitting...
box? What's
Oh.
in the box?
John Doe has the upper hand.
That's right. So later, Swain is sitting in her car when Kit gets in to apologise, saying that he hardly knew Tinker, so should never have been asked to give the eulogy in the first place, which was refreshingly honest.
Yes.
Swain doesn't appreciate him going AWOL again and not having her back, and she knows he's been
Again.
drinking and tells him to have a mint before going back into work. Later, she and Betsy meet up to talk about the document. Betsy claims that she didn't open the envelope and that she has no interest in her sperm donor because Swain is enough for her. But Betsy is immediately off to see Racist Kelly after this. She did read the letter, surprise, surprise, which was dated 3 days before Becky died. As far as Racist Kelly remembers, Becky was deliberately run over, and Betsy confirms this, but needs to know why Becky was in serious bother with the anti-corruption unit. Was she fitted up? Did she know too much? What if the hit and run is a cover story? Racist Kelly tells her to speak to Swain, but Betsy has another, far stupider idea
Yes.
that might generate some more drama. She needs Racist Kelly's help to find out for herself what happened to her mum. Dodgy cops work with dodgy people. Teach me the ways of dealing with these dodgy people, says Betsy, in an
Yes.
actual line in this stupid TV programme.
Yes. And I mean, don't get me wrong.
Racist Kelly is Mr. Miyagi to Betsy's Danielson.
Wax on,
Racism on.
wax off.
Racism off.
Oh my God. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I love the two of them together. And I love the little bit of Glenda that we get with Racist Kelly and teaching the ways of pouring the pint.
Yes.
And the making of the hot pot and everything. And Glenda being like, oh, go on, go take your break.
Yeah, that was
That sort of
great.
stuff. Yeah, I love that. But this whole, I need your help to find out if there's a deeper conspiracy about my mother's death. Come on.
Seriously, I had to watch that 3 or 4 times to understand enough of the gist of it. To what we try to do here? Racist Kelly's going to... What's she going to do? Why is she doing that?
Yeah, especially
Are we
since
trying now to say that Betsy isn't streetwise and street smart all of a sudden?
and let's
She's
be
very
honest,
stupid.
she's very stupid.
But I don't think she's one that's ever burdened with
Streetwise.
self-doubt too much.
No. And also, when we find out later what Betsy is talking about, Racist Kelly doesn't do much.
On Friday, Swain is looking at houses in the country on their laptop, but Carla's more of a city centre kind of girl. Swain is in a better mood now that Tinker's memorial is over. Betsy comes in and announces that she has plans with Dylan today, so won't be available for lunch. But she isn't with Dylan today.
No.
She's in prison with Racist Kelly, visiting Ant from Ant and Dec.
Who's had a haircut
Ant from Ant and Dec has developed into
and a wash.
a bit of a Hannibal Lecter character. Betsy wants the truth about Becky, and Ant from Ant and Dec is about to leave when this is Racist Kelly doing her job here, scowls at him and tells him to sit down. And so he does.
Wow. Well done.
That's what she's there for.
Right, to scowl at people.
Betsy blows her cards and tells Ant from Ant and Dec that she knows her mum was being investigated and she needs to know if it was an accident or if something else was going on regarding her death. Ant from Ant and Dec tells her that he knows exactly what happened and he'll tell
But
her,
it'll cost
but it's
her.
going to cost her 2 G's.
See?
So Betsy immediately agrees because she's got a trust fund. Ant from Ant and Dec says...
And Aunt says, ooh, look at you with a trust fund.
Ant from Ant and Dec says this goes all the way to the top, to the White House. And it becomes clear...
I believe it.
And it becomes clear that Ant from Ant and Dec is just winding Betsy up.
Yep,
And that was pretty funny.
it was.
Later, Swain and Carl are in the Rovers, cooing over the idea of Betsy and Dylan being an item. But Steve's there
Really?
and puts both of them straight because Betsy and Racist Kelly were stupid enough to get a cab off of streetcars. So when Betsy gets home, Swain confronts her and Betsy explains why she went to speak to Ant from Ant and Dec, and she had to do it because Swain lies about everything. Betsy says she was humiliated.
Yes, while Aunt always tells the truth.
Betsy says she was humiliated. I'm not sure how. And she doesn't know who her mum is because of Swain. Swain tells her the case was dropped and Becky wasn't corrupt and Betsy put herself in danger for nothing. From today,
I don't think she was really in danger in the prison because there's lots of guards there.
no more secrets. So Carla tells Betsy that they're thinking about buying a big bastarding 5-bedroom house in the country or city centre. Betsy approves, and Swain goes to check on the chicken. And that's as far as we get with that.
Right.
this week.
Well, Carla and Betsy coo over. Why do they need 5 bedrooms? Oh, well, wait. Bobby, Ryan.
No, they're moving away from those people. I just made up the 5 bedrooms.
Well, I know. But still, the fact that they're talking about moving to someplace bigger. Bobby and Ryan. I still don't understand where Bobby and Ryan sleep. Because they call Betsy's room, and there are no other rooms. There's only 2 bedrooms there.
Top and tail. The top and tails in the kitchen. Probably sleep in the fridge.
Is there like...
Well, Bobby's in Spain at the moment, so no one has to worry about that.
Right, yeah, living it up with Simon. Getting into wacky, crazy adventures with Simon.
Oh, why aren't we getting to see that?
Seriously, I honestly would like to
curious.
see that.
I'm curious.
Yeah, that would be fun. They haven't done a location set in a very, 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 very long time. It was when Gail hit that woman from TV. With
Lorraine
a
Kelly.
rock. Was it a rock?
No, it was an arrow. She shot Lorraine Kelly up the arse with an arrow.
And a woman from TV who got a cameo in Coronation Street. Oh, no. The last one was...
Griff and his gang and the exploding van.
Oh, right, when they went camping to learn how to be men. Oh, for fuck's sake. See, I was thinking that it was when they went on that booze cruise. Remember when they went on the booze cruise?
I remember the booze cruise.
Yeah, that was a good episode. I love the booze cruise.
It's
Evelyn
at
and
the stage
Sean getting
where
drunk together.
Even just having lots of scenes shot outdoors that we get this week felt a little special.
Yeah, when they show the lovely patio set that they've put over the sinkhole.
No, the big bastard and 5-bedroom house is one of those Alan Partridge things that one of our correspondents the other week enjoyed so much.
Yes.
All right, let's move on
Aha!
to our next storyline. Theo No Sleeves.
We're just calling it Theo No Sleeves.
Anything. Well, any storyline that featured Tim's mum, remember, was always Tim's mum about the house.
Well, yes, because we had theme music for it.
We did.
God, I miss those days.
Simpler days.
Yes, when we got to use fun theme music
Yep, when
for More Than a Hospital
before
or Swain.
before a third of our Canadian listeners just abandoned us. On Monday, Theo had his arms out in full view over breakfast. George is still in the house for some reason.
You have a big-ass house.
And overhears Todd wondering how long he's intending to stay. George doesn't say anything and quickly leaves for work and is replaced by Millie, who's,
Right, no, and it was hilarious when Millie showed up because George comes back and says, "You have a visitor," and then just steps out, and then there's Millie glaring. It's like spooky Millie.
Theo asks Todd to look after her as he goes off to work. Todd overhears her making an appointment and she announces that she's 6 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
Somehow, this is why she threw paint on the hearse 4.5 weeks ago.
Right, and also 6 weeks, you probably wouldn't even know at 6 weeks that you were pregnant yet.
And you certainly wouldn't at 10 days.
No.
That's why she threw paint on the hearse, because she couldn't speak to her dad about it because he was too busy fucking Todd.
Right.
Todd reckons that she should be sure about that before she goes about telling people, so he fucks off to get a pregnancy test kit for her, leaving her alone in somebody else's house.
It's probably really going to confuse Addie.
Yes. Theo comes back, shocked that Todd has left a 16-year-old girl in someone else's house on her own. He wants to know what's up just as Todd comes in, and Millie says that Todd told her not to say anything about her being pregnant. Todd explains that that's not exactly what happened, but
No.
Theo is very protective of Millie and asks for some privacy.
And is stupid.
And asks for some privacy in someone else's house, so Todd leaves them to it.
In his own house.
In Nina's roles, Todd worries that he's got involved in something he shouldn't have. Nosy Gary is there for him, as is Sarah. And Sarah gives him a woman's perspective, and Gary thinks everyone is in shock and they'll calm down.
Right.
Todd goes home. Millie has gone. Theo announces that he's going to go back to the house to be there for Millie. thinking this is all his fault. Todd thinks this sets a bad precedent, but Theo and his bare arms have no other ideas
Because he's dumb.
and won't apologise for putting his kids first. There's no way in the world that girl is pregnant.
No. When Todd's like, oh, do you know who the dad is? First of all, who on earth asks a 16-year-old girl if she knows who the dad is, implying that the 16-year-old girl is spreading it around?
If only I knew, she said. I've been fucking so many guys left and right. I can narrow it down to 10.
And then she's like, oh, you know, this guy who lives next door, who she's not even dating. This isn't even, oh, my boyfriend who lives next door. It's just this guy that I've been hanging out with next door, you know, just
Having sex with.
so deadpan and everything. And it's like, do any of these writers know anybody who is Gen Z? Because this is not how Gen Z talks about.
You can't be speaking on
Sex.
behalf of an entire generation here.
Yeah, but I mean, articles have been written about how little Generation Z cares about sex and drugs and rock and roll, and how in my day this isn't how we acted when we were teenagers. And it's like, do you hear yourself talking, sir? Do you hear yourself complaining that kids aren't putting themselves in danger on a daily basis the way you did back in the 70s?
On Wednesday, Todd and Theo are preparing for Theo moving back to the house to be with the kids and the wife who hates him. Before he leaves, though, Todd wonders if Theo might be interested in getting his hole. Theo is very interested. After that, it's off to the Rovers for hot pot.
Yes.
Theo is already dinging Millie's calls. Todd does his best to make Theo put his daughter in second place to sexual intercourse and lamb stew, and is very dismissive about Millie's pregnancy.
That's what I do.
He's jealous of her, and it's not a great look, so Theo leaves him to it. Todd gets drunk and badmouths Glenda, who overhears and threatens to throw him out until he turns the conversation to show tunes, and Glenda's back on side again.
Right.
Todd seems to be eyeing up James in it the bargain.
Yes.
And as the two of them chat, Todd
Yes!
is contemplating bailing on the relationship because it's too complicated.
And-
but then Theo comes in,
and then
somewhat
he sees a
surprised that
Bailey.
Todd has spent all day in the pub with the attractive ex-footballer.
Right, yes. Who, if I'm honest, I wouldn't hate that. Todd and James? I wouldn't hate that.
James is far too boring.
He was more interesting talking to Todd than he is talking to his own family, though. He's interesting when he's flirting with Todd.
Has Todd and James, with either head, ever interacted?
I don't think so.
Because when James was in it before, the Baileys were only allowed to have storylines with other Baileys.
Right, yes.
Remember?
Yeah, and occasionally Ken.
So this is an improvement.
Yes. Yes, it is.
On Friday at the Undertaker's, George is road testing a new aftershave that smells of cheap air freshener. Todd gets a text from Theo letting him know that he's been given the green light for Millie's birthday, so has to cancel his date with him. In the pub later, Glenda announces to George and Todd that she has plans for a drag night next week. So that sounds like
Woohoo!
fun, doesn't it, Helen?
I can't wait. Are they going to get the drag queens that they had on the show? Was it last year? Remember the drag queens last year? They were fantastic.
I wouldn't imagine so, no.
You think they're going to have other drag queens and not the ones that were on last year, which were fantastic?
I think Kev's going to wear some lipstick and that'll be it.
No, because Kev has cancer. He can't wear lipstick.
At work, George is frustrated when Todd's mind is not in the job and instead is on a different job.
Yes, a hand job.
Millie has sent him an Insta pic from her birthday party. Happy families with her, Theo, Miles,
The boy who lived.
and Danielle. And you can tell that Danielle is in the middle of shouting slag as the photograph has been taken. And this photograph really grinds Todd's fucking gears here.
Todd is being trolled by a 16-year-old girl. Todd, you're an adult. You're a grown-up.
And a scheming adult. A scheming Machiavellian adult.
Right. So, come on. She's 16 and very confused about what it means to be a homosexual. And also about how babies are made. So, because she thinks just hanging out with her neighbor gets her pregnant.
And she knows after 10 days.
Yes. I'm wondering if in in fairness to her, I'm wondering if she's thinking, oh, that's why I was so emotional through paint in hindsight.
I think my point stands. This is just a relationship made of red flags.
Yep.
And as much as I liked Todd and Theo together,
And I like
and
Theo.
I guess I still do on some level, there is nothing about either side of this relationship that should tell the other party that this is something to pursue. Because Theo has had the devil's own job admitting that he's gay in the first place.
Right.
Kept a secret that he's married. Kept it a secret that he's got kids.
Yeah.
And now is thinking that this is a good idea to go back to his marital home.
Just for the kids.
Just for Millie's birthday party.
And because Millie is supposedly pregnant, we never find out if she takes that second test.
And meanwhile, Todd is doing his damnedest to come between Theo and Millie, who, as far as anybody knows, is pregnant. And he's saying to Theo, I'm more important than your pregnant daughter.
Yeah.
And it just looks dreadful.
In fairness, he admits that it's not a good look.
It's awful.
Yeah. But, I mean, I feel like if Theo got mad at Todd for hanging out with Summer, Todd would get very angry.
Mm-hmm.
And say, Summer is my child with my two other dads, one who is dead now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like, because they seem to be kind of playing it as if Todd doesn't know, as if Todd doesn't have any paternal feelings himself for someone, when he very much does. He's one of Summer's three dads. And I don't know, it also kind of feels like Todd is trying to compensate because he's feeling very emotional because of Julie's death and his mom just fucking off to Thailand with Jason.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand that, but he says this to Sarah. He does not say this to Theo. Theo, who's really dumb and says, well, Julie died when...
That was funny, though.
It was funny, but it was also like, read the room, pal. It just confirms that Theo is this big, dumb...
lump. It's just a big old lump.
He's just a big, dumb guy who will stand up for the little guy, but isn't very bright. And I feel like his kids aren't very bright either, but they're bright enough to troll Todd. And Todd's letting them, and that doesn't seem like a very Todd thing to do. He should just sleep with James. That's what he should do.
Much simpler.
Just sleep with James. He's they had really good banter together, the two of them, when they were sitting at the bar and talking about.
Yeah, I don't think that's nothing. I think that's
babies.
coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it was the most interesting conversation James has ever had on the show. And at least James is very much out now, as opposed to when he first started on the show.
I'm not gay.
I'm not gay. So we've moved past that. Whereas Theo is still
A
kind
heart
of...
attack will do that to you.
Yeah. When you have a heart attack,
Then you have
It
Ronnie
makes you-
slapping you in the chest every 5 seconds.
it'll make you come out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy Pride, everybody.
Let's move on to our next storyline. Sucks to be a Webster. Just a few scenes
Yeah,
here,
not
Helen.
much here. Not much here.
On Monday, Ronnie and Leanne are in the bistro and they're both enjoying this friends with no benefits relationship that they've got. Toyah's serving and she seems a bit worried about it all. When Leanne nips off for a shite, Toyah tells Ronnie how much Leanne's been through and asks him to be careful with Leanne's heart. Ronnie promises that it's a friend thing and nothing more. Leanne comes back from her shite and sees Toyah hanging around, so she gives Toyah a piece of her mind, warning her to keep her nose out of her fucking business, accusing Toyah of trying to steal Ronnie from her
Which is so stupid.
because we all know what Toyah's like.
Oh my God.
Leanne bitterly tells Toyah that she and Ronnie are just mates, but even if they weren't, it's nothing to do with old yo-yo knickers there. Leanne storms out, leaving an embarrassed Ronnie to apologise. And that's all that happens in that storyline this week.
Yeah, that was... I hate that they keep doing this with Leanne. who is herself very much a yo-yo with the whole, putting this whole thing behind us.
Oh, that's the thing. They were going to just put it all
Put it
behind
all
them.
behind us. Right, because we're sisters. Leanne first asked Ronnie what he and Toyah were talking about. And Ronnie is very honest about it. It's like, look, she was just concerned that maybe it was too fast for you to move on and everything. And she seemed like she was just really concerned for your well-being. And Leanne takes that to mean that Toyah wants to sleep with Ronnie, which doesn't make any sense. Except, of course,
Toyah
for
doesn't
the fact,
want to sleep with Ronnie, Leanne. Toyah's sleeping with your ex-boyfriend. Remember?
Right, yeah.
Remember what this whole thing's about?
Yeah,
But this is a classic Leanne, though.
I'm kind of tired with it. It's like, just be happy. Just be happy. Why can't anybody on this show just be happy? I was watching the show and it's like, nobody is happy. Except for maybe David, the dog.
Well, we've had this little contemplation before, haven't we? And I think the
We
only
have.
person that we thought was happy was Doran.
Yes, but we haven't seen Doran in ages.
Again, another one where the storyline just goes so far and then drops off a cliff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When I was, investigating Corrie News, there was like an interview with the actor who plays Amy about how she thinks that the show is going to improve when it's only on five times a week.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
And that they'll be able to explore new things. And it's like, are you still on the show? Because I haven't seen you in ages.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. Bring Amy back.
I'm pinning an awful lot of hopes on this 5 episodes a week thing because
Right. And of course, it just confuses me because to me,
you won't
it's
notice.
3 episodes.
You lose half an hour is
Right.
what you're going to notice.
Yeah.
But hopefully those episodes that are on each day are more focused and less spread thin.
Right.
That's what I hope anyway.
Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Our penultimate storyline this week is fostering ambition. On Wednesday, Sally and Tim are getting all excited about their fostering training that's coming up. After the
same day as the memorial.
After the memorial, they go to the Rovers where Sally is very scalding of racist Kelly's ability to pull a decent pint, and she berates Glenda for not teaching her properly. Glenda turns the tables by suggesting that being less critical of youth might make her a better foster parent.
Yeah. So
Suitably
suck it.
chastised, Sally orders a couple of hot pots for later and leaves. She worries that she's judgmental, and Tim and Izzy are far too scared to tell her that that's exactly what she is. And despite the memorial, though, she's ready for a Zoom call with the social workers that we don't see. On Friday at Nina's Rolls, Lou is looking for a babysitter today and asks Brody. Brody, despite shitting his pants in public this week, rather cockily tells her to go fuck herself because he
Right.
has plans.
Yeah. Doesn't specify those plans. He is. And then, starts yelling at her.
Mm-hmm.
And sounds scarily an awful lot like Mick when he's yelling at her. And it's like, oh, shit.
So Lou asks Tim, but he has work. She thinks it's because he doesn't want to be seen with the local scumbags, and that's enough to get Tim to agree. So when Sally gets home, she's surprised, but not angry, to see Lou's girls, but thinks Lou is using Tim. The Zoom meeting yesterday apparently went well, and to celebrate, Sally's putting triangles on all her toilet rolls. Later, though, Tim has left his mouldy old underpants on the bathroom floor, and as Sally reads him the riot act about this, the wee girl, Shanice, cowers into the older girl, not Shanice. And not Shanice talks about how violent Lou and Mick's arguments can get. Sally tells them that there's nothing to be scared of so long as they pick up their fucking underwear off the bathroom floor.
Yes.
Later at dinner, Lou calls Tim, explains her accident in another storyline, and asks if the girls can stay over. Tim's unsure. Sally is a firm hell no, but Lou again talks Tim into it. Later, Brody has managed to get through the day without shitting himself again, but he's furious when he discovers that Lou dumped the girls on Tim and Sally. Meanwhile, Sally's starting to think that they should keep the girls on a more semi-permanent basis. That's as far as we get with that this week. I am loving Tim and Sally in fostering mode.
Yes.
Now that Sally's on board with this,
My only...
she's 100% on board with this.
The only thing that makes me sad is this means that we'll get no more role-playing sex games.
They just have to be more careful about the time and place they choose to do it.
They have to be more discreet and move that box from the living room.
Yes. Especially when the social work come round.
And hide the batteries from Abby.
They're so great, though, with the dinner, sitting at the dining
Right.
table and...
Being like overly polite to one another to the point where the girls are like, all right, okay, we get it.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun. I liked it.
And Sally just talking about how wonderfully beige their home is.
I know. It's like, if I don't understand that whole style of beige, that would make me crazy.
It's remarkable how that colour features in so many places on the show. You won't know this, but I put a little story card together for each storyline for the YouTube posting of the podcast.
Yeah.
And what I do is I take the main subject of the picture, say it's Sally.
Right. And put it out against the bricks.
No.
Oh.
So thank you for proving what I was suggesting. And I keep the colour there and I make the background just a single colour. And the number of times that single colour in the background wants to be beige is incredible. There's so infrequently there's any blues or greens. The colour is very earthy and
Yeah.
brown and light yellows.
Which is why I'm so glad they redecorated the Platts house. Blue.
And
Blue.
well,
And black. And gray. But still, no beige.
yeah, I guess
Cheap, crappy furniture.
as it turns out.
Yeah.
No, this is a really wholesome story. It feels like we're setting it up for them to be looking after Shanice and not Shanice,
Right.
on
yeah.
a longer term basis.
It kind, and Sally just goes ahead and talks about, what if we just fostered these kids, because obviously their home life is terrible. Mm-hmm. Their dad murdered somebody.
It was really quite powerful though when the wee one cowers into the big one when, because Sally and Tim aren't really arguing.
No.
It's striking how that affects the wee one.
Right. Just automatically.
Who is now expecting violence.
Right.
That's so sad.
It is sad. It's very sad.
But what a great couple to have in your corner.
Yes.
Is Tim and Sally.
Right.
Just fantastic.
It just makes you wish that Mason was still alive.
Yeah, seriously. All right, our final storyline tonight is the grand reopening of number 8. On Monday, Gary's in speed dial when Lou approaches him to tell him about her money woes. She's looking to sell Mick's van. Maria and David come in. They're bickering about David taking time off to build flat pack furniture now that they've moved back into number 8. So on the down low, he gets Lou to cover his shift. Maria isn't impressed with this, and nor are David's customers who don't want a slag like Lou cutting her hair, and so Maria has to do all of David's work too. At the new, very dark number 8, David
In
is...
fairness, I don't think I would want a woman whose husband murdered somebody anywhere near my head with scissors.
As far as I'm led to believe, women are very particular about who they let cut their hair. And you want the same person. You find the person that you like and you always want that person to cut your hair.
Yeah, Harmony has cut my hair for years now because
I don't give
like
a
the way
fuck
she does.
who cuts my hair. And most of the time, I do it myself.
You've even let me cut your hair.
Just that one time. But for Mrs. Braithwaite from down the street, it's perfectly understandable. If David's the person who cuts David's hair, she's not making an appointment to cut her hair. She's making an appointment for David to cut her hair.
Right, and to laugh at his snarky jokes.
Right.
Yeah.
Get a wee cup of tea and all that sort of stuff.
Right, yes.
So the new very dark number 8, David is hard at work assembling furniture ahead of Shona's celebratory barbecue. Maria blames David for Lou. David reminds her that she was the one who hired her. Maria just recommends being careful when it comes to that Lou. On Wednesday, ahead of the memorial, Lou and Maria are at loggerheads again as Lou apparently has forgotten that it's Craig's memorial and her man killed him, and she tries to bark orders at Maria. Maria's having none of it and tells Lou to wind her fucking neck in. Lou ducks out to Nina's rolls and bumps into Gary, and he continues to be uncharacteristically understanding of her situation and tells her to pick a side between Mick and the people on the street, but then he offers to buy Mick's van off her. At the memorial, Maria is hacking furious again when Lou shows up to pay her respects. Except she's not really there to pay her respects.
No, she's getting their free booze on.
Free booze. Maria tries to throw Lou out, but Lou makes herself comfortable with the free booze. Maria sits in fumes, but then can't hold her water any longer and goes to throw Lou out again. Then Gary appears and once again appears to be Team Lou, reminding Maria that she's a victim in all this too. Lou declares that she doesn't condone Mick killing Tinker, and she's dead sorry in that.
Yeah, and Kirk says thank you and walks away.
He's very appreciative of Lou's kind words. Lou thanks Gary for buying the van, which obviously Maria had no idea about. And then Lou goes to the jail to see Mick, and it seems that she's tired of pretending that Mick was stitched up for Tinker's murder, and she tells him to stop winding Brody up about it, then has to admit that Kit helped with Brody's seizure in another storyline. However, it's clear that Lou is still devoted to Mick, whose face has healed up very nicely from that beating they took a few days ago, and is planning on fleecing Gary for all he's worth. Back at the Rose Gold flat, Maria is still furious with Gary, who is dinging Lou's texts as he denies there's anything suspicious going on.
You know, I can see him buying the van for his business.
Yes, absolutely.
It would make sense for him to buy that van for his business and not necessarily telling Maria about it because it's for his business. Mm-hmm. It's not something for the household. So, I mean, Maria doesn't double check with Gary whenever something happens at the salon, does she?
Does Maria normally have an opportunity to buy something from Gary's nemesis?
Does Gary have a nemesis anymore? Because Rick the Chin's dead.
Yeah, but if he did.
Yeah.
Because it's not really the fact that Gary's bought a van. It's that Gary's bought a van off of Lou.
Right. Does it feel like Maria is, like, excessively crazy about Lou?
Yes, 100%.
Like, nobody really necessarily likes Lou, and everybody seems kind of uncomfortable around her. But Maria seems to have made this her whole identity when it wasn't Lou who locked her son in a closet. It was Mick. It wasn't Lou who killed Craig. It was Mick. And I understand that means that you don't really want to hang out with her or anything, but the fact that Maria is just kind of crazy about this, and I hate to call another woman crazy, but they're really making Maria crazy about this.
And we haven't seen the half of it yet.
No, it's going to get so much worse.
So let's pin that and we'll come back to it. On Friday, Lou is in Nina's Rolls when Maria and Shona start chatting about the grand reopening of number 8 and that fucking barbecue. Lou starts chatting to Liam, but Maria quickly ushers her away.
How dare you speak to my son?
Lou remarks about how much friendlier Gary is, which is just a statement of fact at this point.
Yes.
At work, Lou watches Audrey stuffing cash into the register and then starts to salivate. Shona comes in and Audrey asks her to take the cash to the bank and puts it in an envelope, but Shona can't do it. Lou offers, but Audrey puts the kibosh on that, and Shona takes the envelope away after all.
To give to David.
But then Lou notices Shona has left her phone and quickly nabs it. The new number 8's weird.
It is weird. You're trying to remember where things were and how it was arranged, and it takes a while to figure it out. And they've removed a wall or something, or they've rebuilt
the little vestibule.
Yeah, it's gone, or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure spatially it makes sense. It's like the Overlook Hotel in The Shining.
You can kind of see where the couch used to be, with the stairs behind it, but not really because of the darker color. And I'm wondering if that's why it's a darker color, so that it confuses you.
Maybe.
That it's a brand new set.
But they're all talking about interior design, and Sarah surprises everyone with a desire for boho vibe. Something ho vibe.
Well, yeah, but she defines the boho vibe as putting a hammock inside the house.
Outside, Lou shows up at the party to return Shona's phone. Aha, very clever. And give them a housewarming present. So she gets asked to stay for a drink. And Maria is asked to cut Lou some slack, for fuck's sake. To her credit, Lou isn't disruptive as she eyes the envelope of money getting handed about between Shona and David, and it ends up on the shelf of the barbecue before going into the house. Gary arrives later with Vin Diesel the Weasel that he apparently rescued from the trash months ago and refurbed.
Ha ha! I'm so happy.
It's nice to see
Vin
Diesel
back.
the Weasel back. Maria is up like a shot when she sees Gary and Lou sharing a joke, and everyone is getting a bit pissed off with Maria's attitude here. Later, when everyone's arguing about whether Leanne's a cow or not, Lou sneaks into the house looking for that envelope, and then she has a crisis of conscience. And it looks like she's going to take it, but then she puts it back, and of course, Maria comes in and sees this. The two of them struggle, and unseen, Lou falls into David's fancy new glass coffee table that he's fair taken away with. Lou says that Maria pushed her. Maria denies it. David is fucking furious about his precious table, while Gary helps Lou up. David's reaction is just so funny because the only thing he gives a fuck about is
It's
that
the
table.
He's like, what? Did you think there was a park bench? I love it. I love it. More David.
Yeah. Gary helps Lou up. Maria explains that she stopped Lou from stealing the money and then stopped her from leaving. Gary's the only one who hasn't been drinking, so he's the one to take Lou to hospital. Later, Maria admits that there was a scuffle, but Lou tripped herself up. David is still pissed off about his fucking table and all his efforts to de-gale the place.
Which is hilarious.
Superb. So at the hospital, Lou needs a couple of stitches, and do you know what that does? It reminds you that last week or the week before, Lou got some stitches as well. And where's the scar for that? Gary,
Right, yes, in her face when
yeah, just a big
when
scar
she
on
had
the
that
head.
big jam dribbling down her throat. And
Was that a couple of weeks ago?
yeah, a couple of weeks ago.
Gary manages to talk Lou out of going to the police, and then oddly starts opening up to Lou about problems he and Maria have suddenly been having.
Have they?
Like, what problems are these?
What problems are these? We have that. It's Steve and Tracy all over
It's
again.
Steve and Tracy and George and Eileen all over again,
Right.
all over again.
Yes, it's like because plot, we're going to make the most adorable couples start to have fights and hate one another.
Lou puts her hand on his and tells him that she's always there to listen. Gary quickly leaves. Later, David goes to the Rose Gold flat to check on Maria and wonders why she's letting Lou get under her skin like this.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Maria thinks this is good versus evil, but David thinks it's just snobbery. Gary comes home and for a moment seems to be suspicious about Maria and David.
Which is weird.
Maria confesses to the argument to him, but insists that she didn't push anyone. Gary tells her that she needs to apologise. Maria can't believe Gary's taken Lou's side over this and wonders if he fancies her, and then becomes sure that he fancies her.
When he says, as if.
Gary thinks she's been ridiculous, like a stupid, jealous woman, and he goes off in a huff. Maria confides in Sarah, and neither of them know what Gary's playing at here, but then PC Should Be Tinker comes in and arrests Maria after all.
Yeah.
For actual bodily harm, and that's how we end this week's episodes.
Yeah. Remember when Maria tried to attack the underworld van with a stick?
Yes,
When she was
because
mad,
of Liam's asthma.
right, because she was mad at climate change.
Yep.
Good times. Now nobody on the street is concerned about climate change. Remember when they had that whole
Well,
thing?
they solved it.
That whole thing where like 4 different British soaps would like talk about one another fighting climate change during Earth Week or whatever.
It was awful.
And then which was basically just, oh, look at this article in this newspaper about these kids in this other soap opera who did this thing to fight climate change. Aren't they brave? Yeah. Not even Nina is talking about climate change. Then again, Nina is barely in the show. Remember when Nina and Evelyn and Toyah like padlocked themselves to diggers?
Mm-hmm. Remember when this week's show happened?
Yeah, I'm remembering when the show was better.
Well, if we start doing that, we're going to be here all night.
It's true.
This strange new device of the show to have characters who, as far as you know, have been perfectly happy together, suddenly become unhappy.
I hate it.
I'm not a fan of it.
It makes me
But-
it makes me worried because it seems like it happens every time we say, I really enjoy this couple. This couple is really cute together. They're my
also-
favorite couple of the show.
It also means it can happen to anyone.
Right.
But
They better leave Tim and Sally alone. That's all I'm saying.
that's exactly what I'm thinking. But there's also the thing where no one is interested in a happily married couple
No.
because where's the drama? So when people are happy together or content or they have each other's backs or they're just good together, you accept that it's only going to be short-lived. And at some point, this is all going to go south. But I prefer it to be something that gently evolves or devolves over time rather
Right.
than something that just happens so shockingly as this.
Right.
Because when he says, yeah, we've not been getting on for a while, I'm like, what do you mean when you had her back and about the revenge porn or
Right.
when you were both a united front against Liam's bullying?
Right.
You know, it just...
Which just goes to show that you can have drama and you can have these people be interesting without breaking them up.
Yeah,
Because
but sooner or later you do.
every single Gary and Maria storyline we've had has been interesting, where they have one another's backs, where they support one another. When one finds out that the other one has murdered somebody and helps them cover it up. You know?
Yeah.
There are other ways to do it. And then when it starts to feel like it's going stale, then we don't have them on the show for a couple of weeks. Maria and Gary, and it's funny because we complained so much that Gary was like off the show for forever, but they're kind of becoming Nick and Leanne and Toyah with how much we see them and how many storylines are getting thrown at them. It's like maybe we just sent them on a happy vacation together for a couple weeks and focus on other people on the street that we haven't seen in months. Maybe that's what we do. Bring the wee boy back.
Doran.
Who likes to talk about yellow. He's Chris Martin in a little body.
I totally agree with the point that you were making earlier, though, that Maria's obsession with Lou doesn't help the kind of contrived feel of this storyline where, all right, they're suddenly not getting on so well. Well, okay, let's not ask too many questions about that. But then let's ask why Maria is being so obsessive about Lou. And you can say, well, Maria was the one that basically held Tinker at the precinct and stuff, and how that affected her. And we did see it affecting her quite badly.
And Craig was essentially her nephew.
But the fact of the matter, like you said, is that Lou was not responsible for any of that. And at the start, it felt, when we were introduced to them, that Lou was far more of a champion of Mick and would back him up in anything. You know, we had that where, was it with Gary, where Lou would, or no, it was with Mick and Daisy. And Lou was like, well, Daisy must have come on to Mick. That must have been what happened. Like, she always takes Mick's side. But
then
but more lately, that didn't seem to be the case. And so for Maria to have such a shit opinion of Lou is fine, but for her to be so vocal and in Lou's face constantly about it just doesn't seem to fit Maria at all. It's
right.
I don't know. It just, that seems out of character, and Gary, for his part, seemingly enabling this, doesn't feel all that Gary either.
No. And I do have to say, in Lou's defense, there have been times like when Daisy and Daniel were doing their little memorial for her miscarriage, and Lou and Mick walked in, and Mick started like giving Daisy a really hard time. And once Lou figured out what was going on. She's the one who kind of pulled him back and pushed him into the pub and stuff. And there's been other times where you notice that she is a little bit less of a cartoon character than Mick is.
Yes.
Where she seems genuinely human at times.
Yeah, and that's becoming more and more like that as time is going on.
Right. Yeah, where, you know, you kind of, there's a party that kind of wishes that Lou sticks around.
Very much so, yeah.
But yeah, it also just, it feels weird that Maria seemed to be the only person who was upset when Lou showed up to the memorial.
Yes.
That nobody else said, hey, it kind of feels like maybe this isn't the place where you should be. Mm-hmm. It's very nice that you seem to want to pay your respects, but you seem to want to pay your respects to this glass of wine. Mm-hmm. Because you walked in to pay your respects and then didn't pay your respects. You just went to go get a glass of wine. You know, and I mean, Gary did kind of pull her aside and say to her, you know, when I said that you have to pick a side, this is not what I meant. Mm-hmm. But nobody else seems to publicly care. And Sarah kind of cares later when it's just her and Maria in the pub right before Maria gets arrested.
Right.
But even Sarah does not seem to be care, and it's nice to see Sarah and Maria together and kind of complaining, not only complaining about Lou, but complaining about Gary. Yes. I appreciate that. But the fact that like nobody else said anything, and then, you know, when Lou said her thing to Kirk, that Kirk was just kind of like, thank you, and moved on, but didn't say, thank you, but I would like you to leave, please. Mm-hmm. Which is weird because considering the way that he treated Chesney and Gemma, who were not at the memorial, which was weird. Mm-hmm. Wasn't it weird that Bernie is the only member of that family at the memorial? Bernie, who knew Craig less than anybody else in the family. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that whole episode of the show should have just been Craig's memorial. If I'm honest.
Oh, I don't know if I could have taken an hour of that.
It just felt so skirted over in honor of two other storylines. Mm-hmm. Where Craig's death has become this storyline of Maria versus Lou over Gary.
Yeah, and this is a comment of Coronation Street in general at the moment, that there's no over, there's only during.
Right.
So the memorial marks an end of a story. We can't have an end of a story. We have to have other stories that are continuing on.
Right, through it.
But that I think
trampling all over it.
But I think that's a great point about the other people who could be incensed about this, or could at least have an opinion on it.
Right, or should at least say, you know, this is just a bad look. Maybe you should go.
Do you think Lou and Mick are still tight, as it seemed in the prison, or is that a front from Lou? I could go either way on that, I think.
The week that Craig died, it really seemed like the show was trying to present Lou in a really sympathetic light, that she is, you know, the battered woman sort of thing. But then she's the battered woman who is still like trying to pass her kids off to other people, tries to get herself invited to other people's parties, and contemplates stealing money from other people and doing all this other shitty stuff, and then trying to get Maria arrested. It's like, does this really gel with what the show is trying to... It's racist Kelly all over again.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're trying to do.
No.
There's aspects of Lou that I really like and would like to see more of. And I think she's a good character and she's a good agitator, but I don't know if they have her path clearly laid out, or I don't at least think that they're communicating it, because, like you said, it's strange some of the things that they choose to have her doing, and they have her going to visit her murdering husband in prison when she knows that he's guilty. Right.
And, you know, and they have her say, look, just shut up. We all know that you did it. Stop winding Brody up. But also, I'm going to cheat Gary out of lots of money.
Yeah, she doesn't feel like a person who's desperately trying to keep her family together.
No. And it's just, it's like Brody as well. It's like, oh, did we have this epileptic seizure to try to soften the character for us and try to get us to sympathize with this character? And then he's being verbally abusive to his mother in public and saying things that we've heard his dad say to his mother. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, the show is having Gary say to Lou that she needs to pick a side. Well, Coronation Street, you also need to pick a side.
I see what you did there. I'm kind of hoping that this is just a test for Gary and Maria. And I'm hoping that they're not going to go the way of George and Eileen and Steve and Tracy.
Correct.
Because while Gary and Maria are beige, at this point in my life,
No, they're rose gold.
I kind of like to see that beigeness and still feel somewhat attracted to it.
Right.
It's because it's comforting, it's
It's
cozy.
nice. And it makes sense, and it's believable. I'm going to say something that I know is going to make a lot of people upset. So just hold on. Gary and Maria have chemistry together. Mm-hmm. That's really good. Sally, Tim, great chemistry together. Carla and Swain do not have great chemistry together.
Oh, you don't think so?
No. And it especially like weeks like this week where, you know, once again, Swain is being verbally abusive to Carla because she cooked her dinner and sort of thing. And the way that they kind of like kiss on the cheek and just on the cheek. We don't like really see. And, you know, Swain leaves without saying, I love you. And then Carla says, I love you to an empty room.
Yeah, that's,
You know,
that's not what you're looking for in month 3 of a relationship, I
no,
guess.
it kind of reminds me of Asha and Nina. I didn't think worked very well because, like, their first kiss we didn't actually get to see because COVID.
Yeah, they were just walking ominously
towards
together. I think they did a good job at the start of it, but they've thrown so much drama at the pair of them.
Right, exactly. They don't get to be happy.
Right. Because the moments where they are happy this week, where they're looking at houses and stuff and
Right.
being cute when they're cooking dinner, I think that works really well.
Yeah.
And I think that they do have a chemistry where they seem to be a team and where Carla is a good surrogate stepmom for Betsy.
Yeah.
In fact, Carla seems to have a better relationship with Betsy than Swain does.
Betsy and Carla have great chemistry together.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, you know, Betsy has great chemistry with Racist Kelly and Racist Kelly has great chemistry with Glenda.
But I would like them to give Carla and Swain that breathing space to be a couple and to develop the relationship.
Right, where they go away for a nice long weekend.
Without this, without always something hanging over them.
Right, without
And maybe that's what the show's missing is just allowing people to be happy.
Right.
Allow people to be deplorable like they were. Well, they weren't really deplorable, but as far as
Yeah.
you're going to get on a show at that time of night,
Right.
with the gowns and everything like that, and come here you and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. Where does that go so quickly in
Right.
a relationship?
Well, it's like Abby and Kev, who, again, I have never believed that relationship. Not from day one. But yet, it is a relationship that the show has thrust upon us for the longest time. And now it's like, oh, well, you know, Abby's not a drug addict anymore. Kev is dying of cancer. Let's throw another wrench in there
But
with this brother.
But that was another example of a couple who weren't really allowed to organically grow
Or
because
breathe.
Abby was always blowing shit up, or
Punching people.
or Kev was always accusing her of falling off the wagon and
Or sleeping with people.
and getting to a new low and stuff.
And also punching people.
So where you don't allow the unit to work like they've allowed Gary and Maria to work,
Right.
like they allow Tim and Sally to work,
Right.
it becomes a difficult sell.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and see, that's the thing that that I've always liked with Gary and Maria. They made one another better.
Mm-hmm, they did.
Because Gary with Sarah was not a great character. And Maria before was kind of airless, you know, where it just kind of floated around and there was like this thing hanging on her that she like slept around when she was younger and stuff and everything. But then once she got together with Gary, she got some self-confidence back in herself. She ran for public office. She defeated climate change.
She did.
They worked together with the whole Liam suicide ideation storyline and the bullying storyline. And they were a united front. And they had drama in their life while still being a united front and while still developing as characters.
And because they came together in such a unconventional for the show type of way, where Maria is basically saying, Gary, I know that you're an untrustworthy fool, but I'm accepting you as that.
Right.
And let's give this a go.
Yeah.
And I liked that. I liked how Maria was going to just accept Gary for what he was and do her best to be a family together. And,
right.
And it's been successful.
And to be adults.
And has made him a better man.
Right. And they're adults now, you know, when they were on the show, when they, you know, they've grown up a little. I mean, I know that they were both adults when they joined the show essentially, but they've grown up and they're, you know, they're in a part of their life where certain things shouldn't be a thing anymore. I don't watch And Just Like That. I did watch Sex and the City back in the day. I do not watch And Just Like That. But a lot of people that I listen to podcasts on do watch And Just Like That. And this is a complaint that they have constantly about that show, is that the writers are still writing these characters as if they were still 20-year-olds with apartments much larger than they should have had at that age and with their jobs living in the city. They're trying to treat these 50-year-old women as if they're still in their 20s and still have the problems of a 20-year-old. And it kind of feels like Coronation Street is doing the same thing. And I understand that they're slightly different shows.
Slightly different.
Yeah. I would consider Sex and the City kind of like a soap opera. I mean, there was an awful lot more explicit sex on Sex and the City than there will ever be on Coronation Street.
Well.
But, you know, it's just... It feels like the people who are writing for these characters have never been in these characters' shoes. And that maybe that's a problem.
I honestly think it's a simpler issue, that they just have to have drama.
Right, but it's lazy drama. It's, oh, let's break these people up now, instead of, oh, let's find more interesting things for them to have a dramatic story about, the way that they did already with like the bullying and the suicidal ideation and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've made me think of Sarah Jessica Parker, and that's unforgivable. So now we have to wrap this one up and say that was the week that was Coronation Street. Helen, what was your moment of the week?
Is it Tim and Sally with the girls and the dinner and them, you know? I really want to give it to Craig's Memorial, but I really don't want to give it to Craig's Memorial because the show did not earn it. I mean, I guess Swain's speech was nice, but I would have much rather had Kirk give a speech about. Although, did you notice that when he's driving away in the underworld van to go to the funeral,
And the work van, by the way,
which is hilarious, he also says, "You know me, I cry all the time anyway." So it almost feels like the show is acknowledging our idea that Kirk is just very, very depressed.
Terribly depressed. I mean, for me, I think it probably was Swain's speech, because it really was so well delivered.
It was.
If I was to pick something else, it's David's reaction to the destruction of his table.
This isn't a park bench. That was hilarious. Yeah, we have to give it to Swain's
It's
speech,
Swain.
don't we?
Yeah, it's Swain's
It's
speech.
Swain.
It was really good.
It was.
And that's our
Moment of the week.
Moment of the week.
boring moment of the week.
Betsy and racist Kelly going to see Logan in jail.
What's racist Kelly doing?
What is she doing there? Glaring at him and telling him to sit down. And
He does.
And he does.
Boring moment of the week.
It's just a terrible excuse to bring that character back very briefly.
I was hoping it was going to be Dec from Ant and Dec. I preferred that one.
Yay!
He wasn't the one who murdered Mason, though.
No.
It was Ant.
All right, on to our section. This is where we ask our Twitter followers to rate this week's episodes in terms of yay, meh, or zzz. And the voting so far, still with a few hours to go, is zzz 21.8%, meh 19.5%, and yay 58.6%. So overwhelmingly positive response to this week's shows. Chatterbox writes, actually enjoyed this week. Really hope they can get Lou back in the future. And says, loved this week. Lisa's speech at the memorial was amazing, and here for Swarla moving to number 6. Only downer was Maria being so self-righteous. She was doing my head in. Glad she got arrested. Thanks, Anne. Amy says, solid week all round. Nice balance of the light and the dark. Joe, brilliant week of episodes. And Jen says, I really enjoyed this week's episodes. So very positive. Of course, we don't let that influence our scores. So, Helen, what is your score for this week's shows out of 10?
6.
I think it was a good week. I quite enjoyed it this week. I'm going to give it a 7.
I feel like I'm just really disappointed in the short shrift given to poor Tinks.
Fair enough.
And, you know, it just feels like there's just far too much going on, you know, using the death of a beloved character as a springboard.
What was that all about? Remember that week that Swain had a cold?
You seem to put far too much stock in people coughing on this show, meaning that they're going to die.
Listen to it.
Remember?
That's not great.
Remember when Ken had a cough and you were sure that he was on death's door?
If you see someone in a movie with a cough, you can guarantee they're going to die.
Well, yeah, if that movie is
Anyway.
Contagion.
And let's record that this is week 1 of no one going to Thailand to visit Eileen. All right. This episode was brought to you with thanks to our friends of the podcast. Daisy, French Helen, Pickles, DT, Wendy, Noel, Canadian Helen, Christy, Shandy, English Victoria, Aurora Yvonne, Heather Westerfield, Russell Whiting, Jackie B, Brittany Porter, Laurie Anna, Tina, Stephen, Leah, Tara J, Fiona B, Canadian Jennifer, and Josephine O'Tingy. Thank you ever so much, folks. We very much appreciate it. If you've ever had an incident on a glass coffee table, write in to tell us about it, but please keep it clean. We're the Talk of the Street at gmail.com, and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky, or you can reach us the old-fashioned way, the Talk of the Street, P.O. Box 12, Eaton Rapids, Michigan, 48827. You can shout me and Helen a coffee or become a friend of the podcast by heading to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street, or patreon.com/the Talk of the Street. Check out voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store, YouTube channel and blog. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And be sure to check out our pop culture sister podcast, The List of Lists.
I like ballerina. Gav does not.
Thanks for making it to the end of another episode, and we will be back next week with more
Talk of the Street.
Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio.